by the Honorable Gene Belisario, the Pledge of Allegiance by the Honorable Jake Roby. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Dear Lord, as we prepare to perform our duties in service to the citizens of this great parish, make sure that we open our hearts and minds to the needs of the citizens and not that of others. Please make sure that we listen attentively to each other, pay attention to the details, and make the best decisions for the citizens of the parish. That everyone who speaks this evening, that they openly express their ideas and accept that others have different ideas and be amenable to arrive at a reasonable solution. That we may put aside any self-interest in favor of the good of the entire parish community. Dear Lord, please assist our leaders in Washington as they address the serious negative impact of bigger waters on our area and the entire United States. Dear Lord, please watch over our troops that are in harm's way or on duty anywhere in the world. Amen.
Amen.
Chair, I'd like to pass the honor of the pledge to Scout Johnny Fitzmaurice from Troop 610, please.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Ford, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dean. Mr. Sharp. Here. Mr. Thompson. Mr. Faulkner.
Here.
Mr. Gould.
Here.
Mr. Tanner.
Here.
Mr. Bender.
Here.
Mr. Groby. Mr. Canulet. Mr. Belisario.
Here.
Miss O'Brien. Here. Mr. Stefanczyk.
Here.
Mr. Ortigue. Mr. Smith. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is election of officers. Item 1 is Resolution CS number C-3915, resolution to appoint a chairman of the Parish Council for the calendar year 2014. Open the floor for nominations. Mr. Thompson.
I'd like to nominate Reed Falconer.
I second that nomination.
Okay. Nomination by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Tanner to nominate Reed Falconer. Any others?
Yes. I would like to nominate Jerry Bender.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Ortigue to nominate Jerry Bender. All right, any other nominations? Motion to close in a second. Okay. Please vote. No, excuse me. Don, you have vote sheets?
No, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that we do a public vote.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Green and, can do green and red on the thing, or show of hands, or voice, viva voice, either way you want to do it.
If we're going to do public, let's just speak into the mic.
That's fine.
Let's do it that way.
Excuse me.
Do a roll call from 1 to 14.
Mr. Dean.
Bender.
Mr. Sharp.
Bender.
Mr. Thompson.
Falconer.
Mr. Gould.
Bender.
Excuse me, I skipped Mr. Faulkner.
Falconer.
You vote for Tanner?
Mr. Tanner. Mr. Bender.
Bender.
Mr. Groby. Mr. Canulet.
Bender.
Mr. Belisario.
Bender.
Miss O'Brien.
Falconer.
Mr. Stefanczyk.
Falconer.
Mr. Ortigue.
Bender.
Mr. Smith.
Falconer.
With 7 votes apiece, it is a tie.
Okay.
I'm not surprised.
Mr. Hand.
According to Robert's rules and a recent Attorney General opinion, you are required to continue voting as many times as is necessary to obtain a majority vote.
Y'all sure y'all want to stay?
Okay. Ms. Ford, I'll let you start over again.
Mr. Dean?
Bender.
Mr. Sharp?
Bender.
Mr. Thompson?
Falconer.
Mr. Falconer?
Falconer.
Mr. Gould?
Bender.
Mr. Tanner?
Falconer.
Mr. Bender?
Bender.
Mr. Groby?
Falconer.
Mr. Canulet?
Bender.
Mr. Bellisario?
Bender.
Miss O'Brien?
Falconer.
Mr. Stefanczyk?
Mr. Falconer.
Mr. Ortiz?
Bender.
Mr. Thomas?
Falconer.
Is that 7-7?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it is.
No, really can't.
Yes.
Somebody needs to change their mind.
With a vote of 7 for each candidate, there is a tie.
Do it again.
Right.
No. You stay.
Okay, Ms. Ford.
Playing 2 out of 3 now.
Mr. Dean?
I usually like being in District 1, but tonight I'm not real crazy about being the first one. Falconer.
Mr. Sharp?
Bender.
Mr. Thompson?
Falconer.
Mr. Falconer?
Falconer.
Mr. Gould?
Bender.
Mr. Tanner? Mr. Bender?
Let me stop here because I don't want to cause any undue pressure on the rest of my colleagues, okay?
There won't be any.
Okay? I will continue.
I need your vote, Mr.
Bender.
No, it's good.
Mr. Groby?
Falconer.
Mr. Canulet?
Bender.
Mr. Bellisario?
Bender.
Miss O'Brien?
Falconer.
Mr. Stefanczyk?
Falconer.
Mr. Ortiz?
Bender.
Mr. Smith?
Reed Falconer.
With a vote of 8 to 7, Mr. Falconer is the chairman. 8 to 6.
Mr. Falconer, congratulations. If I could for just one moment, I do want, I want everyone to know that it was my intention tonight to not cause a tie vote. But our supporters, as you can see, are very, very strong-minded and good people on both sides. And I agreed to go along because they've supported me, just as Mr. Falconer's have supported him. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with this because it's the American way. I just want to say a few words, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. I've served 4 years as council chairman, and that's why I didn't have a problem with pulling out originally. I will tell you that 2013 was a difficult year in the sense that it was corner, and corner. And I will tell you that while the council, and I'm proud of the whole council, we got a lot done in other areas. And I want to be gracious, very gracious about this, okay? I support the council's vote. I support Mr. Falconer, because I have to tell you, it'll allow me also to get back to my district. And that, in a way, is good news. But I do support the will of the council. And thank y'all, for my council members, for your support in 2013. Thank you.
Yes, he sits over in Falconer's seat now.
Yeah, he asked me to.
That's good.
We need a motion and a second in order to officially appoint Mr. Falconer as chairman.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, second by Mr. Thompson, 2 Ts in a row. All in favor, please vote. I'm sorry, everybody, please vote.
Mr. Bender, your vote is not showing up under Mr. Falconer's name. All right. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
First of all, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for the honor and privilege of sitting in this chair. I hope I can live up to their expectations. I keep in mind a statement that was made in an installation years ago, early in my career, and it goes simply, "From the ranks I have emerged, and to the ranks I will one day return." And I want to keep that in mind while we're carrying forth the business of this council. So thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is Resolution CS number C-3916, resolution to appoint the vice chairman of the Parish Council for the calendar year 2014. Are there any nominations for vice chairman?
Yes, I'd like to, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'd
Ms.
like to
O'Brien.
nominate Richard Tanner.
All right, we have a nomination and a second of Mr. Sharp.
Mr.
Are there any
Chair,
other nominations?
just have a comment. Traditionally, before me and since I've been on the council, whoever side of the parish was, who was the chair, the vice chair, came from the other side of the parish. And quite true, Richard Tanner is from the west. So I'm looking at yourself being from the west and Richard Tanner being from the west. I would prefer that we have someone come from the east. It's nothing against you or Richard. This is what we've done for years.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tanner.
Mr. Chairman, could I address that?
Go ahead.
Sure, you defer to Mr. Stefanczyk.
I probably, other than Red Thompson, I've been on this council a little longer than anyone, and that is only a thing that happened back, so I'm going to give the public a little information here. That happened back when we were trying to decide whether or not the 8th and 9th wards were going to split off and become East St. Tammany Parish, and the rest of the place was going to be West St. Tammany Parish. And that actually happened in this parish many, many years ago. There was an attempt at that. And so from a parish or from a governing standpoint, we said, okay, since there's 7 from the 8th and 9th wards and 7 from all the other wards, we're going to have 1 from each side whenever we do this. Well, that's no longer the case. When Webb Hart, his seat went vacant and came District 10, which is why Maureen sits over here with all of us on the east side, because she's from the west side. That seat got moved to the west side. And now we've got basically 5 to 6 people in the 8th, 9th wards, not a 7-7 split. So I don't see where that thing falls into place. And Richard Tanner's area spans both east and the west. He's right north of Pearl River where you are, Gene. He's right north of Highway 36 where I am, and I'm considered east, you're considered east, and we're going to put him in the west. I don't understand that. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's probably one of those things that we need to do away with on this council because it has no inherent value for the future of how we operate this parish.
I'm not in total agreement with that, but that's beside the point. I'll withdraw my request.
Well, we can also look at this a different way. Richard is from the north and Reed is from the south, so maybe we can look at it new.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Comments? All right, is there a motion to close the nominations?
So move. Richie.
I got a bunch of them. Who?
Richie.
side.
Richie. Didn't you
Richie,
move
was
to
that you?
close?
All right.
He
Mr.
did.
Smith, motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Bellisario to close nominations. All right, we have,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I move that we accept by acclamation or pass the resolution for vice chairman with Richard Tanner
Great.
as vice chairman.
Motion on the floor to accept Richard Tanner by acclamation. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Smith? All right, everyone, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, Mr. Tanner, thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
Thank you. I look forward to serving with Mr. Faulkner and the administration of this parish to continue to move it forward. And hopefully and I'm sure we will get together as one and as one voice for this parish, and that's from the council. Thank you very much.
I'm informed by our legal counsel that we do need a formal resolution to appoint Mr. Tanner as the vice chair. Can I have a motion to that effect? Motion by Mr. Bellisario, seconded by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Next item on the agenda under presentations, the first presentation of a certificate of recognition to Johnny Fitzmaurice of Troop 610 for becoming a Life Scout. Ms. O'Brien.
Okay, we'd like to ask Johnny and his parents to come up, please. It's a privilege and an honor to acknowledge and recognize Johnny Fitzmaurice, who's a sophomore at Fontainebleau High School. He's 16 years old. He's a member of the Fontainebleau High School Band in the Junior ROTC. He's a Life Scout with Troop 610, and he's working on his Eagle Scout rank. Now, he launched a recycling program for fishing line. Recycling containers to collect discarded monofilament fishing line has been placed at 2 fishing spots in Mandeville. 2 of the collection bins have been erected at the Mandeville Harbor, and 1 is located at the Mandeville Fishing Pier. Now, Mayor Donald Villery credited Boy Scout Johnny Fitzmaurice here with us, a Life Scout, as we said, who put the bins in place as a part of service project that he needed to become an Eagle Scout. Now, Mayor Villery said that he approved the project and put Johnny in touch with Keep Mandeville Beautiful Coordinator Susan Russell and Public Works Director David DeGeneres to get the containers installed. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what this actually does. Environmentalists consider improperly discarded monofilament fishing line a danger to marine mammals, sea turtles, fish, and birds. Ingesting the line can often result in death for sea life and wildlife, and some animals can become entangled in the line, causing starvation, amputation, and death, experts say. Moreover, birds collect discarded line to build nests, causing hazards for their young. Human divers and swimmers are at risk from entanglements, and the line can also damage boat propellers. Now listen to this. The monofilament line made from a single fiber of plastic is amazingly strong and is not biodegradable. It lasts up to 600 years in the environment. So thanks to Johnny, we have no idea how many animals will be saved, how many people will not get injured, and how many people will not have problems with their boats. This was an excellent idea. Let me just read the certificate. It says, "The Parish Council would like to acknowledge Johnny Fitzmaurice of the prestigious Life Scout Honor of Boy Scouts," and like we said, he's working on Eagle Scouts. "We take pride in acknowledging our younger generation for their dedication, achievements, and active pursuit of leadership roles." And once again, he's one of our many shining stars in our community. I have a strange feeling we're going to be hearing a lot of good things about this young man. Congratulations, we're very proud of you. And I asked Johnny if he'd like to say a few words.
I'd like to thank the council for recognizing me tonight. I think a fishing line recycling program is important to this area and will benefit our community. I'd like to thank Troop 610 for their support, as well as Mayor Villery and the City of Mandeville for allowing me to complete my project at Sunset Point in the Mandeville Harbor. Thank you.
Maureen, can I ask Johnny to do us a favor on the other end of the parish? We're opening up the fishing pier Saturday in Slidell's. We'd like one of those receptacles out there too, please.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. The next item on the agenda is presentation by a member of the Independence Fund organization regarding the organization and the track chair. Councilman Groby.
Good evening, fellow members. I've invited Mr. Jason Cole to speak here tonight because he serves as an ambassador to the Independence Fund. The Independence Fund is a true nonprofit organization dedicated to helping all veterans. The fund is different in that 99% of all monies generated go back to the veterans. They only have a 1% overhead. Not many organizations can state that. In order for veterans such as Jason to travel and explain the wonderful design of this mobility vehicle he has, plus others, he has to pay out of his pocket, or fundraisers can be done so he can travel through the area. In order to keep expenses down, ambassadors like Jason are enlisted to help spread the news. Seeing this vehicle is believing. He was in the Christmas parade and people couldn't get over it. Countless veterans who have lost their mobility can finally get the chance to re-experience the outdoors with the help of these amazing all-terrain chairs. No longer must they be confined to the pavement. Tasks that are simple to you and I, such as fishing, hunting, going to the beach, or playing with our children in our backyards, are now possible to disabled veterans. Jason is married to Miss Dawn. He is the father of Tessie 10, Gretchen 8, and Caitlin 7. They're here tonight. Jason also served as a senior project manager and field engineer with the pharmaceutical and supply automation company up until his retirement in 2009. Jason is a proud resident of Lacombe, and I'm honored to call him friend. And without stealing too much thunder, I'm going to turn it over to Jason now. Thank you.
Before I get started, I brought my post commander, Mickey and Bryce, with the VFW post here in Lacombe. Come on up, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm with the VFW Lacombe. I'd just like to thank the council for the help and support that you give the veterans of St. Tammany. We truly appreciate it. Thank you. And this is one of the better programs, if you're willing to give, this is one of the better programs to support a disabled veteran. Thank you.
And I just want to thank the council, I want to thank the parish president for giving us opportunity to have a veteran advisory council to make contact to get this type of program going in St. Tammany Parish. Thank you.
Before I get started, I just want to talk about the asset that is sitting right outside the door here at the parish. Y'all have a park here where disabled children can play. But it's unique because not only disabled children can play, but disabled parents can go interact with their children at the park. That's unique. You don't see that anywhere outside St. Tammany Parish, and it's only here at Coop Drive. So I just wanted to say that before I started with this. The Independence Fund is a unique organization. They have some eloquent stuff here, but they break down the barriers between able-bodied and disabled-bodied veterans. It's a unique organization. It has based on 100% combat veterans. They have no paid employees. Like Jake said, 99% of every dollar given goes directly to support the veterans. And you can see the unique piece of equipment I have. It lets me go places that I never could before. I can play golf. This gets out the way. I can lean forward enough to be able to swing a golf club. I can go fishing, something that is never could before. And it would be great if they just did this, but it's not just this equipment. They take veterans out of the wheelchairs, out of their disabilities, and put them in situations where they can grow past their disabilities. This war has created a new kind of disabled veteran. Since the miracles of medical technology, we have created these ultra-disabled veterans where they never could have survived the wounds that they're getting now. And that through medicine, they're able to come home, but they are more wounded than ever. And it's only through the Independence Fund and organizations like this that they're able to be able to get through and get the treatment and get this type of equipment that they need that the VA does not supply. When I went and asked the VA, hey, give me something for quality of life, they told me flat out, learn to live with your disabilities. And I hope she's watching tonight because the answer is no, I will not. But it's through the Independence Fund that you really become independent. Thank you.
If y'all are looking for a charitable donation for your tax checks here, there you go, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Groby, for bringing this fund to our attention. And Mr. Call, I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. Thank you for what you've done for us. All right, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, but before we move to the presentation of the 2014 budget for the coroner's office, the administration has asked that we move an item up from the off-the-floor agenda. And as long as we're doing one, I would recommend to my colleagues that we go ahead and take all three.
We will.
So I need a motion to open the
We have to
off-the-floor
open the
agenda.
agenda to include the items off the floor.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, that opens the items off the floor. The first item off the floor is a certificate of recognition to Amanda Warren as recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science Teaching and Middle School Teacher of the Year. Ms. Brister. And Mr. Gould.
It is such an honor for me to be able to introduce and give this award to Amanda Warren, who teaches at Lake Harbor Middle School, and that is in Mr. Gould's district. Representing the school board is Susan Patan, who is the principal of that school. Peggy Sharp, I believe, is here too, from the school board. This certificate is extremely special, and I'm going to read it first and then thank you for everything you do. St. Tammany Parish government hereby commends, honors, and thanks Amanda Warren in recognition of her dedication to her students and the teaching profession, in addition to receiving Louisiana's Presidential Award for Excellence in Science Teaching and the Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2013. Thank you, Amanda. I would tell you a little about Amanda. Amanda has been chosen as Louisiana's recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence. She receives a $10,000 $10,000 award from the National Science Foundation. I know that's not why you do it, but it's nice to be recognized. She will receive her award from President Obama at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. this spring. Thank you again for all you do for our children in St. Tammany, and thank you, Mrs. Patel.
Thank you.
Let me get her in the mix, please.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stefanczyk. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the recognition.
I move to remove items 2 and 3 off the agenda from the items off the floor.
Did you want to say something else, Ms. Beck?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Go
if I
ahead.
could, I just wanted to mention one thing. Mr. Ortiz mentioned the Fishing Pier. It is going to be opening Saturday, ribbon cutting. Please come out. It's going to be fantastic. The weather's going to be milder. We'll have a bigger celebration in the spring when it'll be a little warmer, but we're going to cut the ribbon and do some fishing Saturday, and we're so excited about all the work that's been done. I can't tell you how hard everyone has been working to make that deadline of Saturday. So come on out and enjoy the day. Sorry, Mr. Stefanczyk.
No, that's okay.
Ms. Pat.
Thank you, Ms. Brisker.
Ms. Pat, are you aware that the rain is to stop before 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday?
We've been praying and praying, and we got that answer today.
Okay.
The fish don't care, they're wet already.
That's right.
We opened it the first time in the rain. We christened it in the rain, I believe.
Yep.
Luck. All right, we've got a motion on the
Mr. Chairman,
floor.
on the items off the floor, I want to remove items number 2 and 3, which are resolutions concerning Huntwick Village, from the agenda. There's a technical issue involved in this, and we need to just pull it and remove them.
I second that motion.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, a second by Mr. Smith. Please vote. Can we take these together?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Falconer, now that the floor is open, do you want to run through the council and see if we got any? Let's end this now?
No,
Off the
you
floor
can't do
items?
that now.
You can't?
No, we opened the items only
Okay.
from those that have been handed to us.
Okay. Well, I know at the end, if we have some, we bring it up, so I'll see,
But
when it's
each of
open.
those has to be done separately.
Okay.
And they have to be by unanimous vote of the council.
Okay.
Mr. Canulet, just don't let me forget at the end. That's a deal. You gotta know you're good. All right, so we'll move back to the regular agenda, item number 3, the presentation of the 2014 budget of the Parish Coroner's Office. Dr. Menon, welcome.
Excuse me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen from the council. It's a pleasure to be here again. I want to, first of all, start by saying that we really do appreciate the overwhelming support that we've received from every level of the governmental office locally. I want to especially thank Mr. Binder, who has been invaluable in terms of his availability, his access, providing assistance with every level of, I guess, possible questions, and really making sure that the transition that we have undertaken, or that I've undertaken, has gone smoothly as possible. So I do really appreciate all that you've done to assist us. We have submitted in December a copy of the 2014 budget for the council and for the parish president to review. I'd just like to point out a few line items to start off with. Our overall total revenue should be around $4.4 million, which includes intergovernmental revenue of around $3.6 million. That represents about a 10% decrease in intergovernmental revenue from fiscal year 2013. That's a direct result of our expectation that the expenses should be significantly decreased in the year going forward. And as a result of that expectation, the parish council has rolled back the millage, leaving the taxpayers with an excess of about $400,000 that would have been otherwise allocated. Secondly, we expect our total appropriations to be around $3.8 million. There are some other items that are included in that you may have seen, including the capital outlays, the extraordinary items. Having said both of those things, though, we do expect an excess of about $600,000. That $600,000 would have been, I guess, used for future sources of expense, but we do have those capital outlays and the extraordinary items that we'll have to account for, which we expect will utilize most of that excess. But hopefully going forward with the resolution of some of the issues that have, I guess, been left over from the previous administration, we'll make sure that we leave the office with, I guess, as little deficit as possible for the incoming coroner to handle. Are there any questions that I might answer?
Dr. Menace, you know, you and I met with your staff right before this meeting. I had several questions on some of the line items, and I was pleased with the responses I had that came through.
Can we get a copy of that budget?
What's that?
Don, can we get a copy of the budget?
Oh, yeah.
Not in our pack. No.
Okay. I had some concerns over what I thought was just a single DNA analyzer and a grant process, and in discussing with them, they already have 2 grants that have been awarded historically. They're there. They may not be applicable now, but they already are established for grants in 2014 to buy 2 DNA analyzers at approximately $433,000. And the other thing, some of my questions came about because of them cleaning up the account structure, where there are some items there was zero before, now there's money, and it's because they're pulling, as example, payroll taxes out of salaries. Just was not being presented the way I would have expected to see it. And everything else, I was quite comfortable with it. So I just want to thank you for the efforts you put forth.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. And along those lines, to great extent, our in-house CPA, Mr. Moyle, has really done an exceptional job to assist us in making sure that this budget is as transparent as possible and that allocations are made so appropriately, et cetera.
All right, are there any further questions of Dr. Menon? Very good. Thank you, Dr. Menon.
Thank you very
We
much. Good
appreciate
evening,
you
everybody.
coming out tonight. All right, on the regular agenda then, we'll move to the consent calendar. I have 3 items to begin. First, under order to pull from the consent calendar. I'm sorry, 4, thank you. Under ordinances for introduction, item number 6, which is ordinance 5128. Under resolutions, I've got 3, which is resolution C-388. Number 7. I misspoke. Number 7, resolution C-3888. Number 13, which is resolution C-3894. And resolution 29, which is C-3910. The first one? First one was C-3888. It's number 7. Yeah. No, sir. I misspoke, Gene, sorry. Then Mr. Groby has asked that we pull ordinance calendar number 5130. I'm going to get my lips in gear here in a second. 5130. And ordinance calendar number 3132.
Mr. Chair,
It's 5132. Okay, 5132.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what he's pulling is the same template. When you look at Chapter 18, when you're dealing with the Economic Development District, if you read them all, it's the same wording except for the area that you're talking about. And I had called Dawn and had Dawn send an email to the staff. I had some concerns over the wording, and I wanted some clarification. And the reason I'm pulling it is I've seen too many ads on Fox News and Fox Business Network on the state of New York attracting everybody to them because they give you free taxes for 10 years. I've always had, I've dealt with, since I've been in office and changed districts for 2 years now, looking at the impact of the LED program for AWG and Rooms to Go on its impact on the town of Pearl River's budget.
I'm sorry, Mr. Belisario, can you just stand by for just a second? Let me
Sure.
get through the items that we're going to
Okay,
pull and
sorry.
items that we're going to leave, and then we'll get into the individual
Sure.
items as we come to them. So those are the items that I have. Mr. Dean, do you have any items to pull? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Tanner? I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. Sorry, Mr. Tanner, I jumped. I'll try not to do that again. Mr. Bender? Mr. Gould? Now, Mr. Tanner. Mr. Groby?
Since Gene is pulling item 6, and it's identical to my item 8, I'll withdraw my pull, and one explanation should cover them all.
Great, thank you. Mr. Canulet? Mr. Belisario?
I'm good with it because I was in poll 6 and that's been established.
Okay. Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Stefanczyk? Mr. Artigue? Mr. Smith?
You did pull number 29 on the resolution.
Yes.
Yes. 29, yes, sir. I got it, just 1 second. Anything from the administration? Okay, anything from the staff? Now to the public. Please come to the podium, state your name, and give your address for the record.
Terry Stevens, 725 Dove Park Road. Would you please pull number 4, 5126, in ordinances for introduction, and number 5, 5127, ordinances for introduction? And you have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11 already pulled or earmarked, correct? They're all regarding the Economic Development District?
We're going to pull one, and then they're all the same, so.
Okay.
If we'll
And then in resolutions, number 1, CS 3882, regarding Recreation District 10. And then I guess 9, 10, 11, 12 all have to do with the EDD as well. So either they'll be good when we talk about them, I guess. And then
Yes.
I have a special request that number 13 on the regular agenda is moved up to number 1 or closer to the top, if that's possible.
Well, let's get to that point in the agenda, and then we'll see if we've got a motion to move it up. Right now, we're just dealing with the consent agenda.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gene, she wants us
Thank
to
you.
pull it up. Dina.
Congratulations, Chairman Falconer,
Thank you,
on your
Ms.
election, and Mr. Tanner, congratulations. Sandra Slifer, League of Women Voters of St. Tammany, and under resolutions that, you know, they're all regarding the same issue, but 1, 2, 3, and 5, but that it's just one issue with all of those that I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, we're pulling one, so that would be 2, 3, 5,
1, 2,
3, 5.
3, and 5.
Okay.
Thank
And then
you.
we're going to go to 9. Thank you, Ms. Slifer. Does anyone else from the public wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Bender, I've got more pieces of paper up here than I know what to do with, so I'm going to do my best. All right, I think number 4, under ordinances for introduction, is the first one we need to take up. That would be ordinance calendar number 5126, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain conservation servitudes from the Archdiocese of New Orleans for Most Holy Trinity Conservation Area, Ward 4, District 5.
Mr. Chairman,
Where'd that come from? I'm sorry.
I realize we're going to, we're getting ready to go down a line here that I want to make sure that we set some rules for this. And legal counsel and I have talked about several things about this, but we need to, since these are ordinances for introduction, and most of these will be held, we'll have a hearing at our budget, at our agenda review meeting, and then next month we would have another meeting where we can hear and make changes to these things or whatever needs to be done. They're not going to be adopted for a month. We need to limit the discussion, so I'm going to suggest to the chair that he limits discussion to any of these items to 2 minutes.
All right, is there any objection? Do I hear any objection to the 2-minute time limit? All right, very well, then let's begin the discussion on...
Excuse me.
Say again, Mr. Belisario, sorry.
I'm a little concerned about 2 because I know I can talk for more than 2 minutes on the economic development one, because everybody knows I'm short and to the point. No. We have to have the ability to extend and then extend for both sides on everything. I feel it's, if we just, I understand.
That's always an option.
Yes, I just want to make sure that that's there. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stefancic, we'll ask you to keep the time, please. So for item 5126, Ms. Stevens, do you want to begin the discussion? I think you asked to have this pulled.
Let me first apologize for my bad manners. Mr. Bender, thank you so much for your service. I was very gratified at the end of last year that you were making such progress in asking for public input. So thank you, I appreciate that. And Mr. Falconer and Mr. Tanner, congratulations. We look forward to 2014. Regarding item 5126, the conservation servitude, my concern is this, that A, it's a servitude. I'm hoping it's a full donation of the servitude. I would prefer, though, or recommend that the parish consider buying that land so that when the servitude time period expires, they would have control of that property. If that's not an option, then I would like to know whether or not impact fee credits had been offered in exchange or offered on that piece of property. Because in my mind, a donation means there is no compensation for that property. But if impact credits are being donated in any amount, that doesn't constitute a donation in my mind. And I wouldn't expect that the general public would think that a donation meant they wouldn't get anything in return for it, or that they would get something in return for it. So I'd request respectfully that the council consider that and consider, as I say, the purchase of that land so that the parish can control that wetland in the future and hold it under parish rules and parish ordinances so it won't be developed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Ms. Rabelais, do you have a comment?
Sure. This is a donation of a conservation servitude in favor of the parish, which will run in perpetuity. And the purpose of the servitude is to ensure its non-development and preservation of existing wetlands, natural state, and drainage contours. And it will be donated to the parish in a servitude form for conservation, and then the person, the entity that is donating it will apply for impact-free credits, that it's consistent with our ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Rabelais. Mr. Shane.
Good evening. Jeff Shane, and I represent the Archdiocese of New Orleans, who's the owner of the property. I would also like to remind the council and also the general public that these ordinances are effectuating the contractual provisions that are outlined in the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement that the parish entered into with the Archdiocese of New Orleans at your January 3 meeting of 2013. So the terms and conditions as it relates to the manner in which the servitude is delivered, the opportunity to seek impact fee credits are all carefully delineated in the cooperative endeavor agreement that you not only approved 1 year ago, but also a document that has been available to the public for at least 12 months. We look forward to working with the parish, not only in conjunction with the donation of the conservation servitude, which I might add is perpetual, but also in going through the proper processes and channels to see if impact fee credits are in fact available. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Ms. Stevens, you had some additional comments?
I am just hoping that you'll be reminded that the CEA last year, when you approved for the parish president to enter into it, it wasn't completed. And after it was completed, yes, several of these items were outlined, but dollars were not associated with them. And the 80-acre servitude amounts to, from the documents that I received through a FOIA request, $2.1 million in impact fees. So in essence, for that servitude, as I say, not ownership of that property, but only the servitude, the parish taxpayers will pay $2.1 million for that parcel alone. So I think perhaps, unless there's some other documentation floating around, I asked the parish president for it today and it wasn't available. So maybe it is available?
Actually,
Yes, ma'am.
I reviewed your previous public records request, and subsequent to it, we had received an appraisal for the conservancy servitude. We had requested that, so we do have an appraisal, and if you call my office, we can give you a copy, and it does appraise it as a conservancy servitude and not in fee.
And so what will the impact credits be? You must know the answer to that question.
Sure. It came out at roughly around $6,600 per acre.
Per acre for the 80 acres?
Correct.
So I can't do my math that quickly, but that's a lot of money.
$528,000 for 80 acres.
So it isn't really a donation, is my point. If it is a donation, then you give it. It's not a donation, it's an exchange for tax impact credits, and I think that should be somewhat concerning. It isn't a donation.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Shane.
Hope we don't keep this up all night of me chasing, but I'll do the best I can. I think, appreciate the opportunity to speak again. Again, I want to make sure it's clear, the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement was signed by the parish president on February 6th of last year. The appraisals that support the request for impact fee credits were done as of that time. And to my knowledge, the parish has not made a final and formal determination as to the amount of credits that will be granted. So the suggestion, if I understood Ms. Stevens correctly, to say that the parish is going to pay, and I believe that's the word she used, $2.2 million to procure the conservation servitude is simply inaccurate.
Thank you. How are we doing on time, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Well, I've tried to keep track of everybody. Ms. Stevens has about 15 seconds, Mr. Shane has about 45, and
I hear it beeping over
and
there.
Kelly Rabelais has got as many as she
All right,
wants.
Ms. Stevens, take your
Okay.
15 seconds.
Golly. It's not a donation, plain and simple. It's not a donation if we're paying $10 for it, $400,000, or $2.1 million for it. I didn't make it up. It came through a FOIA request. It came from them. They created the 2.1 number originally, so I didn't make it up. Just know, it's not a donation if we have to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Shane, take your 45 seconds.
The donation is the means or mode by which the servitude is conveyed or transferred to the parish. That does not mean, in legal terms, you have things such as an onerous donation wherein you can receive consideration for making the transfer. I know that the parish has received other transfers in the past through the donation mode. Again, I want to make sure it's understood that the contract that the parish signed and approved after public hearing in January of last year outlined the methodology and the terms and conditions. The amount of impact fee credits will be determined by the parish once they go through the process. That's why you typically don't discuss these items ad nauseum at the time of introduction, so that you give all of us an opportunity to look at the legislation, go to the Agenda Review Committee, express ourselves, and come to you on the night when you seek to adopt this. We look forward to going through that process with you and
Thumbs up.
others that are concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. All right, that's the end of the
Mr. Chairman.
debate from the public. Did I
Mr.
hear-
Chairman,
I'm sorry, Mr. Gould.
I'd like to move to introduce.
Got a motion by Mr. Gould to introduce, a second by Mr. Canulet.
No vote is required, sir.
No vote is required. Thank you. You could read my mind. I was getting ready to call for the vote. Thank you. I appreciate the forbearance. All right, the next item on the request or from the consent agenda is item number 5, which is ordinance calendar number 5127. Ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels, rights-of-way, and/or servitudes from the Archdiocese of New Orleans for drainage improvements. This again is from the list from Ms. Stevens.
Same project, same area of the project, which is south of Judge Tanner. It's this particular parcel that's being offered for future drainage. And I don't know, and this is for a purchase price, as per the agenda today. That parcel happens to be located in a wetland. You're not allowed to make a drainage pond from a wetland area unless you receive Corps of Engineers approval for it. In the original request for this project, this piece of property was not included in the mitigation plan approved by the Corps of Engineers. So my concern is the taxpayers are being asked to pay for this 5 acres for the price that's on the agenda. I'm sure you've been made aware of it, but it's actually predominantly in a wetland area. So once the taxpayers pay for it, assuming that you will approve it, we'll have to pay then to have it mitigated. We'll have to pay the Corps of Engineers to allow us to mitigate it, and that just doesn't seem fair to the taxpayers. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Falconer. Once again, Ms. Stevens and I disagree. There is nothing on your agenda this evening with regard to a purchase price for the pond area as it relates to this ordinance. I have no idea what Ms. Stevens is referring to, but to set the record straight, the pond area is to be donated by the Archdiocese of New Orleans to the parish. The Archdiocese of New Orleans also intends to go through the process to see if it can garner or obtain any impact fee credits as it relates to the pond area. The 2.7 acres of the 8.32 acres is in fact entirely all non-wet, and your offices have already issued permits that have allowed us to excavate, clear, and begin construction of that pond area. So any suggestion that this area under construction is wetlands without a permit is again wholly inaccurate. Any suggestion that there's anything on your agenda tonight or next month that has to do with a purchase price or an acquisition or an expenditure of parish funds to acquire this area is simply inaccurate. If Ms. Stevens does not have a copy of the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, I will be glad to provide her one because she will see that it clearly states as I have just said.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Ms. Stevens, please.
Excuse me, Mr. I do have a copy of the CEA. I have read it, and I didn't indicate that the 2 point whatever acre parcel was what we were discussing tonight. It's the 5 point whatever acres. That's what if it's a donation, then maybe I misread the agenda today. However, a donation, as we've already discussed, would be something they gave to us without consideration, and they're asking for impact fee credits. So whether it's $300,000 they're asking for these 5 acres, from the documentation I have, they were asking full purchase price. In this neighborhood, it's going for $60,000 an acre. So 5 acres at 60 grand is $300,000 in impact fee credits, so that's money out of all of your pockets, all of our pockets, going toward purchasing a pond area that is in the wetlands per their documentation and per the Corps. I didn't say the 2 acres was in wetlands, I didn't say that. I said per their documentation, and it shows in what they gave the parish.
I mean, they're running out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Stefancic, for letting us
It's
know.
in the wetlands area. What they're proposing you buy for the 5 acres that makes up the 8. Thank you
Ms.
very
Stevens.
much.
Appreciate it. Mr. Shane, did you want to finish out?
You have 45 seconds.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Again, I must clearly restate that what we have called Phase 2 of the pond area is not being purchased by the parish. It is not on a subsequent agenda item this evening. It's not going to be on an agenda item next month. No public money will be used to buy either Phase 1 or Phase 2 of the pond area. And I would suggest that Ms. Stevens consult with someone to let them explain to her what the CEA says, because apparently she simply doesn't understand.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Ms. Ravelin.
Just as a point of clarification, according to Section 2-11A12 of the Home Rule Charter, this is just our typical ordinances which ask for authority to acquire immovable property. And if you look at the body of the ordinance that's up for introduction, it says the Parish of St. Tammany hereby ordains to authorize by purchase and/or donation. This is our boilerplate document that you've seen time and again with regards to acquisition of immovable property. So it does allow for the donation, which is clearly what this is going to be according to our cooperative endeavor agreement. And further, at the 5th, be it further ordained, it says if purchased. Again, that is just our boilerplate language. According to our obligations, it's going to be a donation.
Thank you, Ms. Ravelin.
Mr. Falconer.
Mr. Canulet.
Ms. Ravelin, Mr. Hand, everything we're doing here is 100% legal by the law, the way we've been handling this for years and years, correct?
Yes, it is consistent with your
Okay.
charter, it's consistent with state law, and it's consistent with our impact fee ordinance.
Okay. It sounds like there's some not trusting going on here. So, my suggestion to you is to please call the FBI. If you think we're stealing public money, please call the FBI. We will be happy to show them anything they want for this.
Thank you, Mr. Canulet.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gould.
I'd like to move on the introduction, please.
There's a motion on the floor to move on the introduction. Is there a second? Mr. Bellisario. Thank you, Mr. Gould. We'll move then to the next item on the consent items for introduction. I'm sorry. Number 6, 5128. That would be ordinance calendar number 5128, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, by adding a new article thereto, creating the Airport Road Economic Development District, District 11 and District 14. Mr. Bellisario.
As I was saying earlier when I started off too quickly, I had concerns prior to any emails from anybody, just myself, because I like to look at numbers. I saw the ads on the state of New York. That sort of bothered me. And again, when you look at the 2 projects that are now in my district, the Rooms to Go and the AWG, I go to the town of Pearl River meetings and I hear the complaints, and I know that the LED, there is agreements amongst people. What has come out of that with the AWG property, there are no taxes going to the town of Pearl River, but the town of Pearl River is saddled with the infrastructure costs, and we don't know what's going to happen over the next 10 years or so. And the same thing with the Rooms to Go. Now, they got the sales tax, that's going to help them there, the split on that. But I wanted to make sure in these, from Don Shayer, from Pat Brister, that before we finalize this, we have latitude to look at the cost of the infrastructure so that we are not financially short, because I don't want to see what has happened, especially with the AWG property. I think it was an unintended consequence, but we're talking much larger tracts of land here.
Thank you, Mr. Bellisario, and that is not the intent whatsoever of this ordinance or the ones following. When we started talking about the interstate through St. Tammany Parish, and some of the newer interchanges that were just opening, some that had been opened and had development there already. What we intended, and what we still intend to do, is to be able to not necessarily control what goes in there, but have a say in what our front door looks like, what our gateway into St. Tammany looks like. Now, I know Airport is already almost fully developed. It was just one of the several. But this is not intended to do any tax. This is intended to ask a developer to work with us to show what we are in St. Tammany, as opposed to not to put any not to be detrimental to any business, because we like them all, but we really don't want a gas station and a Waffle House on every exit of the interstate in St. Tammany. These districts have no voters in them. They are just either some open land at this point in time. It's just a way for us to get ahead of any development that might come, to work with them. We've always been accused in the past of letting anything come and do anything they want, and then try to clean it up or make it look better. We just want to work with these areas before they are developed. It is not intended for anything that would put a tax there or would supply tax money for them to develop anything.
Well,
And it would have, excuse me, just one more thing. And before that could happen, it would have to come back to you again as an ordinance, public meeting, at least 2 times, maybe 3. So you would see that would be happening, and you could stop it immediately if it were. And it is not the intent for that to happen.
and that's why I'm bringing it up now.
Yes, I
because
appreciate it.
when I look at the act itself, when you go to Section B, and it talks about the governing authority on economic development, it is there. I think this is, I'm looking at the Fremo project. It was long before it's the city of Slidell, but I know there was trade-offs with taxes to get that thing developed, and I don't know the total cost impact of that to the citizens, if there are any. I don't know, but I'm just trying to make sure that doesn't happen with us.
Right.
And we need to be letting anybody who's looking at our property, that's one of the things that has to be addressed, and not just roll out all ad valorem taxes for 5 years or 10 years.
We agree with that totally, and as you said, Fremo is Slidell, Rooms to Go, AWG, they worked with the state.
Yes.
We didn't have any say in that either. We have not done that and do not intend to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just bringing it out now.
Mr. Grover.
I had received a couple of emails and some texting on this issue as well, Pat, and I think your explanation covers it. In my opinion, there was a lot of confusion between what you're proposing and what had happened in the past along 434 at the distribution center. I want to verify something to the audience, that the tax breaks that the distribution center received are from the state level, not the parish. We didn't have any say in it. When I first took office, I had heard a lot of rumors about, this great tax break they got, and I assumed it was 10 years, which is pretty much standard for the industry. I was somewhat upset when I found out that there was a 20-year tax break given to them. I'm glad the distribution center is there. It does provide jobs and does provide donations to all millage districts and all. I just want to be careful if we move forward with this, if we don't have another 20-year tax break given to a large corporation.
Mr. Chair.
Well, Mr. Gould was first. Let me go to Mr. Gould.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just said my light left on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tanner.
I move for introduction.
1 second, before let's go ahead. There's a motion on the floor and a second. Ms. Stevens, I want to be sure this was on your list. Did you have any comments that you wanted to enter into the record?
Thank you, Parish President Brister. I appreciate that clarification, and I am all for managing development. It's, no, it's, the only thing that concerned me about adopting the act is that ad valorem taxes are clearly stated as one of the
Possibility.
Yes.
We have no
So ad valorem taxes are property taxes, and hopefully that would not be the case. I've discussed that with a couple of you, so if that could be stricken, that would be super. I also have two other things that maybe we should consider as those areas are developed, and that would be a 100-foot no-cut buffer between, because these are all commercial, correct? Between these commercial development borders and residential areas, a 100-foot no-cut buffer would be fair to the residential areas. And also, if this is our money and this is our development, meaning St. Tammany Parish, perhaps we should limit the construction processes and professionals to Louisiana residents. There are a lot of architects, engineers, contractors, and certainly laborers who would appreciate being considered in some way, shape, and fashion within these economic development districts, and I think that should be something that we should consider as a parish.
And I
Thank you.
think down the road, if that's what you consider, that's fine, but I don't think that's what this is about today. But I
It's
appreciate.
just a suggestion as we
I
move forward,
appreciate
because
that.
you said, or Mr. Belisario said we'd be talking about this.
And
Would you be
again-
talking about that?
Again, let me stress, before anything can be done beyond what we're doing today, there will be public meetings, there will be ordinances passed, so everyone will be aware of what's going on.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Are there any other comments among my colleagues? Mr. Savant, my recollection is that we pulled item number 5128, but at the request of Mr. Groby, we also pulled 5130. I just want to make sure we cover that one. It's in the same topic, but it was in a separate list that I got up here. So, do we need to
My
move
understanding
this
was that Mr. Groby
he clearly withdrew
rescinded his
5132.
request.
Withdrew 'em.
Okay, you withdrew both. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure we were square on what we're doing up here. That I am square with what I'm doing up here. Very well. All right, we'll move on then to resolutions. Say again? All right. Where did we pull 10?
Mr. Chair, check with Therese, but I don't think we made a motion for
Okay,
introduction
got
in a
it.
second.
Yes.
Say again?
Did we make the motion?
Mr. Tanner
yes.
made the
Oh, yeah,
motion, Mr. Canulet seconded.
My notes were that that he withdrew 5130. You want to go ahead and discuss 5132? Great. Great, okay. Let me catch up with you just a second. All right, item number 10, ordinance calendar number 5132, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinances, Appendix D, Buildings and Construction, Chapter 1, Administration, Section 108.5, Building 108.5.10, Minimum Finished Floor Elevations. Mr. Groby.
Sydney, I'd like you to go ahead and give a brief explanation to the public what this is kind of overseeing and changing a little bit so there's no miscommunication.
Sure. Back in 2007, the Parish Council amended the building code to establish minimum standards for floor elevations. As part of that ordinance, it required that every house built in St. Tammany have an elevation certificate done by a surveyor. Now, this applied to houses even if they were 4, 8, 10 feet above the crown of the road. So what the ordinance does, the amendment does, it maintains the requirement that you have minimum height elevation above the crown of the road or above base flood elevation of whichever is most restrictive. But it allows at that preliminary drainage inspection, either the representative Department of Engineering or Department of Permits, whoever's doing the inspection, can, upon looking at the property and suspecting it may not comply with the ordinance, it can require that elevation be shot. But it seems unreasonable, unnecessary to require every home, even when it's clearly a situation where it complies with the ordinance, to go through that at expense for the homeowner or the builder of the property to shoot that extra elevation.
Mr. Falconer, if I may just add a historical aspect that preceded Mr. Groby, and some council members may recall a few years back, Councilman Barry Baggert actually initiated the push for the parish to require houses to be built above the crown of the road. It makes a lot of sense, but it wasn't so long ago where it was common practice for home builders to basically build the houses in whatever condition the land was that the house was going on to. And a lot of times the roads were a higher elevation than those properties and effectively acted as levees that kept rainwater on the properties and actually flooded houses because the water couldn't go anywhere. So for those of you who remember Barry, you may want to tip your hat to him because I'm sure he didn't envision this evolving to this extent, not only on the parish level, but a state level too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Savant. Does anyone in the public wish to make a comment on this item? Any of my colleagues have any further comments? Mr. Grobe, you want to make the motion that we introduce? Motion by Mr. Grobe to introduce, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. And that's what we'll do. Now we get to move on to resolutions. All right, I have the first item pulled, Resolution CS number C-3882, resolution approving the holding of an election in Parish Recreation District number 10. And this is, that's on Ms. Stevens' list, so, and Ms. Sandra, so either one of y'all want to. Okay. Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Wayne Scheid, live at 525 West 17th Avenue in Covington. Covington currently owns and operates the only municipal sports league in St. Tammany Parish. The council is here tonight to approve a voting date, May 3rd, 2014. The voters will be asked to approve 4 mills of a new property tax. There are a number of flaws in the RD10 proposal. Number one, in this proposal, the city of Covington is required to give away control of its bought and paid for multi-million-dollar facility. Number two, the RT10 proposal levies a new property tax throughout the district. Currently, the city of Covington has it dedicated to its recreation. City leaders have stated that the current tax will not be eliminated with the passage of this proposal, only rededicated. And number three, residents of Covington will bear well over 1/2 of the financial burden, but will have less than 1/3 of the representation on the Rec 10 board. Why should the citizens of Covington not have a majority representation on this board? Number four, the Rec 10 proposal imposes additional fees to those who utilize the recreational center, and this is an additional to the new property tax proposed in Rec 10 district. And number five, the Rec 10 board has not designated a contact person to answer questions about its proposal. When asked, we were told to direct questions to various city, parish council members. In conclusion, to understand what the challenge is a step in the right direction. Rushing to have a vote in less than 4 months seems to be a hasty move. The key to success of this recreational complex comes from the input of the community, the parents, and the volunteers, working in conjunction with the Rec 10 board. With these points being made, I ask the council to delay just a few months, and this time we can work together and get this thing right. In doing so, we will be giving the new Rec 10 district something the citizens can be proud of. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Scheid. Mr. Dean.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. One is we do have the chairman of Rec District 10 here, Mr. Trey Blackoff, if anybody has any questions. But secondly, this is us allowing for an election. It has nothing to do with anybody endorsing or anything like that. It's allowing an election. As in any election, there are many sides, and that's going to be vetted between now and May, whatever, 3rd. So that's, it tends, it's going to be all we're here to do is to
Right, is the vote on that
the
date?
election.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
No, I understand that, and all I was basically was asking us to vote no on it and to just push it back. nothing against the election, just the date of it, so that we can push it back, and Covington as a city can sit down and get this thing right.
Mr. Shah,
Nothing to do with Joe.
we appreciate your comments. Thank you. Mr. Dean, did you want to put a motion on the floor?
That's correct. Yes,
You want to move to approve the resolution?
that's correct.
Is there a second to Mr. Dean? Seconded by Mr. Canulet's. Mr. Canulet, right, I know. Ms. Sandra, we have exhausted the 2 minutes.
I'd like to,
Would you like to
Nope.
extend?
yes,
No, we
suggest
haven't.
that you have.
That's 2 minutes a person.
Oh, is it a person? Okay. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. That I'm just here, that there are 4 resolutions on your agenda for elections on May 3rd, and I did bring a copy of the resolution that y'all passed back in 2011 that stated that it was the council's intent that there be one tax election each year. In St. Tammany, at least for the entities that you have to approve. And that, there was, I have a copy of the resolution that I will give to Mike, or give to Dana here, that, and then we also discussed this last year, I believe it was, and that there was, that the intent was that the council staff was going to notify all of these entities of this resolution, and that there would be agreement among all of the entities that there would just be this one election date. So, there are lots of reasons that the league is in favor of having one election date for these tax elections. One of them is the cost of holding elections. The second is that when there's only one item on a ballot, that turnout for that item tends to be very dismal. And, that I just want to make sure that all of the entities have been notified of that resolution that you passed, and that since you're getting ready to pass, to approve these 4 elections for May 3rd, that this in fact will be the date in 2014 for tax elections. So that's my question, and thank you for your time.
Right on time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slifer. Are there any other comments from the public? Yes, Chief.
I'd like to address Slade here.
Please step up to the podium and give your name and address for the record.
I'm David Pittman, Chief, St. Tammany Fire District 5 in Folsom. About 3 or 4 years ago, we had a tax millage that slipped through the cracks, and we tried to get approval, and the parish approved it, but the state didn't. And they said that, so it was put on the ballot sometime after the first of the year. And you say that it was dismal, ma'am? We had 94% or 95% of the people in St. Tammany Fire District 5 that turned out and voted for this tax. So when you say it's dismal, I have to disagree with you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr.
We
Bellisario.
all remember that one. This is my first term. My recollection of what I believe was the intent of the ordinance was to reduce the number of the smaller elections. Our intent was to have one in the spring, and if that particular ballot initiative was defeated, then it could come back into the fall, because we didn't want something rolling off so that the next year, they would have the taxes collect the following year, but that next year they'd have to then look for another election. So we were giving them a second bite at the apple in that particular year. It was not that it only be one time.
All right, are there any further comments among my colleagues? All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, just as a, say again? As a point of clarification now, I had originally been requested to pull items 1, 2, 3, 5, by Ms. Slifer, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 from Ms. Stevens. We just voted
And
on
seven.
number 1, or 7's on our regular agenda, though, I mean, a regular list. So my understanding is we pulled all of those off when we determined that it was one item we were going to talk about.
That's correct.
Are we in agreement? Okay, cool. Then we'll move to item number 7, which is Resolution CS number C-3888. Resolution to set the salaries of the employees of the St. Tammany Parish Coroner's Office pursuant to Louisiana House Act number 181.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that we're not taking the wrong step. On 1, 2, 3, and 5, they are separate from the economic development, so that's why I pulled the one ordinance for the economic development, then there were 5 resos, which are 9 through 12, I believe.
Okay.
And that's what we,
Okay,
by
thank
doing
you.
one, we're done, but we still have to do 2,
Number
3,
9.
and 5, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I thought Ms. Slifer said we would talk about 1 and that would cover it. Is that your intent, Ms.
You
Slifer?
can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that. You can take them in global, as long
Right,
as you
but-
put that word in there, you can take them in global, but that's the only way.
I
you
thought
can
she
do that.
only asked for the 1 to be pulled, Mr. Stefanczyk, and I could be way wrong, so
My
I'm here.
calendar says 4 of them, so.
Okay, well, then we'll vote on all 4.
That, Chairman Falconer, what I did ask was that, I said that all of them had to do with the same thing. But what I would appreciate is hearing an answer to the question that I asked in terms of whether or not the entities had been notified. I would appreciate it if someone would take the time to answer the question before you move on, but that I don't need to speak about each of the resolutions separately.
Thank you. Mr. Savant, did you want to clarify the point about notification?
Back in 2011, as you know, I was the council administrator, and to my best recollection, Ms. Slifer, notice was provided to those parish boards that had either a millage that required periodic elections or had the likelihood of having a proposed millage or other election going before the voters. So to answer your question is yes.
And that was for each year. I believe it said that in December, before the year began, was that every year that these entities would be notified of any, pending elections that they have, so that the situation that we had in the Fire District 5, where it missed the date, we try to prevent those things from happening, so that, I guess what I'm asking is that, did we notify all of these entities, in December of 2013, or in January, have we done it this month, to make sure that all of these entities are aware of their election schedules, and if they have any pending, election issues that they need to be aware of so that they can plan better for them?
Well, of course, I would be unable to answer that definitively at this precise moment. So I guess I would suggest to you that you submit a public records request to the council, or in the alternative, call Don Henderson, the current council administrator, to see if he could answer that question for you.
Mr. Henderson is here.
But let me also add, Ms. Slifer, that, you brought a copy of the resolution that the council brought or adopted back in 2011. And the resolution does indicate an intent of the council.
It is.
To do or not do certain things. It's not mandatory.
I understand.
And I would suggest to you that, I can't answer for the council as a whole, but I know that there are circumstances that do come up time to time, year to year, on each proposed election that may warrant either a consistent application of those guidelines within the resolution or some reason to do something other than that.
Mr. Savant, we're not unreasonable.
Ms. Slifer, please. Mr. Savant, we appreciate your attention to detail. Ms. Slifer, we wish to be very respectful of your opinions here, but we need to move the agenda along. So can we please just follow
Yes.
up on this. If you'd like to contact me, I will help you interact with our staff. I'm certain we'll get right back to you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
might
Mr.
I
Dean.
suggest too, that from the League of Women Voters, could you send a letter out to them? And that way we'll be covered doubly. Yeah,
We'll be glad to send out,
And you just
the
say
election
you can-
schedule to the entities,
and you
that.
can cite this discussion, or you can cite that resolution every year, every January.
Okay.
I'll send you a Christmas
That
card.
is certainly a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slifer. We appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a motion and take the vote on item number 2, just to be safe. Resolution CS number C-3883. Mr. Tanner. Second, motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Resolution number 3, which is Resolution CS number C-3884, resolution approving the holding of an election in Parish Fire Protection District number 5. Mr. Thompson? Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
I've then got number 5, which is Resolution CS number C-3886, resolution granting the approval to Fire Protection District number 13. Mr. Dean? Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Just checking all my lists to make sure I didn't overlook one. Number 7, then back, Resolution CS number C-3888, resolution to set the salaries of the employees of the St. Tammany Parish Coroner's Office pursuant to House Act, Louisiana House Act number 181. Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman Falconer. As you all recall, House Act 181 put the responsibility of setting the salaries within the coroner's office in the hands of the parish council. Previously, at previous meetings, we have set the salary for the CFO and for a secretary receptionist for the coroner's office, as well as adopted the St. Tammany Parish government's labor step grade system as the same system for the coroner's office. We've met with Dr. Menon, Dr. DeFada, and Ken Fielder, and went over all of the salaries of the employees in the coroner's office. And this resolution submits the labor grade range for each of the job classifications. This should be the last time that this council has to visit this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Hold on, I've got a question for Mr. Tanner.
Okay.
I see the labor grades again, but I don't see okay, I'm sorry. Very good, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Mr. Belisario?
Yes, I've spoken to Don Henderson and I believe Jerry Bender on this. The one thing this does not address is the coroner's salary. We have not set that. We have people qualifying in early February, and I think it's our job by Act 181 to set the salary for the coroner. We've got to make a decision, is it going to be a part-time or full-time? Because I think it makes a difference in what somebody wants to do. And in our studies, we have looked at, there's a significant difference between the part-time coroner salary versus the full-time coroner salary. And my concern is during all this upheaval with the coroner, I had heard from different attorneys that if it's a full-time coroner, they can go on a fee basis. And we really have to watch ourselves on that. And I want to talk to Terry to see, is that open enough that we can, as the council, set the salary, it supersedes state law so that they can't go on a fee basis? That's my first question.
No, I feel like once you set the salary, you always have the ability to increase it, but you do not have the ability, because of the state constitution, of decreasing it. So it would be better to set it on the lower end, or what you all consider to be reasonable, and then once whoever the person is that is elected, when you see in the first 3 to 6 months, the time devotion and the job that they're doing, you always have the ability to come back and increase it, but you cannot go back and decrease it.
No, and that's based on what they're making, and that's the key issue then. If it's not going to be on a fee basis, I think it's our job incumbent upon us to set it, that it's either going to be part-time or full-time, because if you look at the labor grades, we go up to labor grade 21, and that doesn't have the salaries compared, I believe, what is in East Baton Rouge, where that corner is making in excess of $200,000. So if our guys are running, looking at other corners in the area, I think we need to be able to set a salary, a grade level if we're going to do that. But I think the more decisions that's incumbent upon us because of all of what we went through last year because of the corner, we make the determination is it can be part-time or full-time. And so who's ever running knows, okay, where they're going to be.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dean.
I got a question, Mr. Hand. Can we do that even though that does this act supersede the first one that allowed the coroner, and I got that, and then I'd like a follow-up statement if I could.
Well, as you know, the litigation is still ongoing with regard to the constitutionality of the act.
All right.
So
Okay.
until that litigation
So
is
there's
resolved, we don't know the definitive answer to that.
Because I'm not real sure that any of us are qualified up here to make a suggestion whether it should be part-time or full-time. I wonder if we should or could suggest a part-time salary and suggest a full-time salary with the denoted amount of hours, full-time being at least 40 hours a week or above, or 32 hours a week or above being full-time, and back down off of that, and give the new coroner who's coming in the leeway if he or she, whatever he or she wants to do. So I think we ought to come up with two, and I don't think it's up to us to determine, how do we know whether it's going to be a full-time or a part-time job?
And I think that's the issue, is that once a person is elected, if you say part-time pays this, full-time pays that, who's going to oversee that?
Well,
Who's going to, you put yourself then in a position of getting into another legal battle because he's considering himself to be full-time, although you may consider him to be part-time.
I guess what I'm saying is that you set the hours. Full-time is 32 hours or above, or you see what I'm saying? I mean, how does
understand.
East Baton Rouge or Jefferson or any of the rest of them?
Mr. Dean, let me interrupt the discussion here, and I don't want to stifle debate, but as I understood from the preface of your statement, Mr. Belisario, this does not include setting the
That's
coroner's
correct.
salary at this
And
time.
and that was a concern I had because...
Well, wait, are you suggesting an amendment to this resolution?
No, what I'm saying is I believe we have to have something on the agenda for the February meeting to set that. I think if we don't set a salary, either a part-time or a full-time, we're abdicating our responsibility.
Okay, that's a good point, and it's something we need to discuss, but the resolution that's before us is the resolution number 3888 that does not include the coroner's salary
Right.
itself.
And you picked up on a good point. If we delay, then you come to February. At the time we have our meeting, they're in qualification. If we wait till March and set a salary for a part-time coroner and someone's giving up a job in excess of $100,000 and says, oh my God, if I win, I'm
Mr.
taking a major
Belisario,
cut.
I understand, but the issue before us right here is this resolution, and it does not include the coroner's salary.
That's correct, but
So unless you're suggesting an amendment, which you're perfectly, able to do, then we need to move forward with the discussion of the
what I'm stating is that I want the staff to put on a resolution to set the salary for the coroner.
I think the
for-
staff
for
got
the
that
February.
message. Is
I
there
hope
any?
so.
Thank you. Mr. Canulet.
Yeah, after hearing Mr. Dean, we've had enough trouble with the coroner's office to last a lifetime. So if we need an amendment, I'd like to make an amendment, make it full-time. I mean, this is insane. You hire someone and say, well, what do you want to work, part-time or full-time? That's crazy.
Okay,
So-
are you making that in
Sure.
form of an amendment? Is there a second to that amendment? No, okay, the amendment fails for lack of a second. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Yes, sir. Motion by Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Smith. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, let's see, number 9, I think is next. Right. My notes are that we're going to talk about resolution number 9 next, and we didn't need to go through 9, 10, 11, and 12. Did I mark that correctly, Mr. Parliamentarian? Correct. Resolution 9, number CS, did we not pull that one? Okay. Resolution CS number C-3890, resolution to authorize the publication of a notice describing the boundaries of Airport Road Economic Development District, Districts 11 and 14. Mr. Smith, did you, sorry, Mr. Stefanczyk, you've got your light on.
No, that was not us. That was a recommendation from the audience.
Okay.
And we were going to pull all of them and talk about one and then take them in global. That was my understanding.
Great. Ms. Stevens, did you want to address item number 9?
Mr. Chairman.
Got it?
Okay. I just might add, this just draws the boundaries
Right.
of what we talked about earlier, so.
I know, but this was resolutions now. I just want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. Okay. Right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that then we adopt resolutions 9, 10, 11, 12 and globally. Take them in global.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Stefanczyk, second by Mr. Groby. Please vote. These are resolutions. No, this is a resolution. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, then, next item that I have is item number 13, which is Resolution CS number C-3894, resolution to approve the appointment of Anthony Smith as Director of the Procurement Department for the remainder of the 2012-2015 Parish President's term of office.
Mr. Chairman, we had asked that that be tabled because we will be bringing an entire org chart to you next month. We'll just include that in, if we could table it for a month, if you would.
No problem.
If someone would do that.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk to table, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, the last item that I have on the items that were pulled is item number 29, Resolution CS number C-3910, resolution stating St. Tammany Parish government's interest in participation in the Louisiana Enterprise Zone program and designation of the enterprise zones and otherwise providing with respect thereto. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we ask that this be pulled in lieu of the state's asking the parish if it would express its interest in participating in the Louisiana Enterprise Zone designation, and they've outlined, I think, 17 different zones that are part of that package, and we just want to offer an incidental resolution to that, which has the same subject matter of 3910, Resolution 3910, to include another parcel that was not included in that 17 parcel packet. So it would not, we're not asking to change anything here or to amend anything with this resolution, but we do want to offer an incidental resolution that I have preparation for us to consider.
So you do not want to amend this resolution?
No.
You want to offer a second resolution?
Exactly. And the only relationship is that they are incidental in the text of what they outline.
Mr. Parliamentarian, help me out on this. Is this something that needs to come off the floor?
With how he's just described it, I would say it needs to come off the floor because it's actually a separate resolution. If it were a portion of this, we'd leave it or address it as part of this resolution, but I'd make it come off the floor.
Then we'll do it off the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Then would you like to make a motion on this resolution? Motion to approve by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Artigue. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, with the public's forbearance, I hope I covered everything out of those, the items we pulled off the consent calendar. We'll move to appeals. The first appeal, Carlo Hernandez appealing the Zoning Commission approval on November 12th, 2013, of a major amendment to the 116.115 acre PUD located at the northwest intersection of Interstate 12 and Louisiana 1088, Districts 5 and 7.
Mr. Chairman.
Hernandez. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gould.
I have not had an opportunity to review the information that was emailed to me a day ago on this project, and I really need to sit down, and I believe Jake agrees with me, that we need to sit down and go over this information with the proponents of the project, and I would invite Mr. Hernandez to sit in with us during that process to get a better understanding. At this point, I'm not comfortable with making a recommendation one way or the other, so I'd like to postpone this appeal until next month.
All right, there's a motion to postpone by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, that brings us to item number 2, appeal number 2. Heather Pines appealing the Zoning Commission denial on December 3rd, 2013 to rezone .656 acres located north of Highway 190, west of Blackwell Drive, from A2 Suburban District to HC2 Highway Commercial District, Ward 4, District 7. Mr. Groby. Sure. Great. Mr. Marone, welcome. State your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the appellant, Ms. Hines. The property that is the subject of our zoning request in this appeal is a relatively small piece, just over a half acre. It's located on the north side and fronts on Highway 190 in the Big Branch community. Presently, the property is vacant. It is adjacent to an existing auto dealership, which is also owned by my client. And the purpose of the request is to expand that existing business. Over the many years that I've had the privilege of being involved in land use cases, the Big Branch cases have been interesting. And in most of those cases, when there's been a request to rezone property in the Big Branch area, there has been a cry from some of the residents in that area that you shouldn't rezone existing property that's not already commercial. You should buy what's there and develop that. Well, that's exactly what my client did. And fortunately for my client, and I think fortunately for the community, they've been successful in that location. So the purpose of the request is to expand the existing business that is already in the Big Branch community. So this is not a speculative request. This is not a speculative use. I mean, we have a known commodity that has been in the Big Branch community for about 11 years. And I would respectfully submit to you that not only have they been in the community for 11 years, but they've been good neighbors and a good business partner for that community. I'm going to circulate some pictures that I'd like you to take a look at that show the property where the existing facility is now, immediately adjacent to the subject property tonight. But I want you to see what it looked like before my clients purchased it, and then what it looks like today. As further evidence that they have been an asset to the community, a good neighbor, there are a number of people from the community in Big Branch that are here tonight that are in support of the request. And I'd ask those people to stand up if they would, please. So we have people that are here in support of what we're proposing to do. One of those individuals would like to say a few words, so I'll try to keep my comments a little bit shorter so that he'll have that opportunity. But the question is whether or not zoning is appropriate at HC2 at this location on Highway 190, and I would submit to you that it is. First, we have HC2 immediately next door to the property. If you look at the Big Branch community, and if you start just to the east of this site and go down to Linwood, you'll find that there are 16 commercially or industrial zone properties. So to suggest that Big Branch along 190 is a residential area is simply not accurate. There are 12 HC2 parcels. There's one HC1, one NC5, one NC3, and there's a very large swath of Industrial 2 zoning that is across 190 along Lemieux Road. So I would submit to you that HC2 in this area is not uncommon, but more importantly, it's not inappropriate. For these reasons, we would respectfully disagree with the recommendation of the Commission. We would propose to you that our zoning, as requested, is appropriate. The use is already in the area. The use is right next door. And for those reasons, we would respectfully request that you overturn the recommendation, that you approve the zoning for this property as HC2.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Does anyone from the public wish to speak? Please come to the podium.
On that side.
Yeah, on that side. Yeah, we're taking pros first. State your name and give your address for the record, please.
My name's Christopher Roquette. I live at 62125 Blackwell Drive, Lacombe, Louisiana, or Big Branch, whatever it's called. My family's lived in Big Branch for about, I think, 60 years now. I've lived in Big Branch most of my life. My uncle is the person who sold the Hines the property in question. The reason he sold the Hines the property in question is how good of a job they did cleaning up what was on the other, what's on the lot, was on the lot. They did a really good job cleaning it up, fixing it up. Their business hasn't caused any problems on the street. I've known them for the 11 years they've been doing business in Big Branch. They've been nice, they keep everything clean, they do a good job with their business, and I'm just here to show my support and my family's support for them with their endeavors.
Thank you, Mr. Roquette. Are there any other proponents of the appellant? Very well. Any others? Did I miss one? Okay. How about opponents to the appellant? Please step forward and state your name and give your address for the record, please.
My name is Sharon Murphy, and I live at 24447 Highway 190, right next to this property. We've lived there since 1995, and I made a few notes, and I'm sorry if I'm nervous, but the Zoning Commission already valued the residents of Big Branch to decide against expansion. This company, the used car company, already has a place in Big Branch, 0.4 of a mile down the road. They did clean up Papa John's, it was demolished, put in a used car lot, but do we need to expand it? They've already got to. This is a residential area, and Mr. Marone said that there are all these commercial places, but if you go down the highway, there's very few active commercial places. Maybe the Hineses, since this is a residential piece, could build a house and they could live next to this used car lot if they don't want to lose the value of that property. Our property went down 20% when they opened their business. I lost $30,000 the day they opened. I would ask, would any of you on the council like to have something move in next to you to lose $30,000 or 20% of the value of your home? We love the privacy, we love the woods of this area. They made a $1 investment and they want to make money and pay taxes just like anyone else. They're not bad neighbors. They're, have kept it clean. They've done, whatever. But we don't want all commercial in Big Branch. We would like to keep it as residential as possible. If this is approved, what's next for our little community? We're the residents, and I have another, my neighbor is here as well, but I hope that you would really consider that if you do approve or reverse the denial, that I will lose 25% of my value. The whole neighborhood would lose value. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Murphy. Please state your name and give your address for the record.
Good evening, new Chairman Falconer and other members of the council. My name is Janine Meads, and I live in Big Branch on Lemieux. The Zoning Commission voted unanimously to deny the petitioner's request for a rezoning. The staff report was unequivocal in its determination that there was no compelling need for this. There's a little confusion about this parcel. This parcel was a derelict piece of property for a long time. It was purchased by the Hines. I knew the property well because I used to bush hog the property. It had a live oak on it, which was cut down. It was purchased, and they converted it into a used car lot. Now they want to expand it, but they have not been at that location for 11 years. They've been at their other location 4/10 of a mile down the street. If you go down that stretch of roadway, you can very clearly see it. It's right across the street from La Provence Restaurant. As Big Branch currently stands, we have 2 used car lots as far as commercial, a 5-star restaurant, and a junk store that's open on weekends. All of this property, which may be zoned commercial in Big Branch, is not used as such. It's mostly residential or vacant. The people have just not wanted to come and commercialize Big Branch. It's too easy to get to Mandeville or Lacombe. I also show you this, which is the product of the comprehensive rezoning. When we went through the comprehensive rezoning process, the residents of Big Branch very clearly stated, and our councilman, Al Hamway, agreed, and our zoning commissioner, Jimmy, agreed, that Big Branch we wanted to leave as a residential area. We've been pretty consistent in that. They put a stripe of commercial down here in Lacombe. And that's where they said they were going to move these commercial businesses. And we were happy with that. Sorry to say it, I think the Hineses just bought the wrong piece of property. They should have purchased one of the many existing commercial properties and put their car lot there, one that would accommodate what they want to do. I don't want them to I don't find them bad neighbors. I mean, a car lot is not the most wonderful thing in the world to have, but it's not the worst either. I would like to do business with them maybe sometime, but, sorry.
You're into rebuttal time.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Meads. Mr. Marone.
We have one more, please.
We've run out of presentation time, but we'll get back to rebuttal and we'll pick you up.
Thank you, Mr. Falconer. Both Ms. Murphy and Ms. Meads made the comment about what the residents of Big Branch want. I would submit to you that there are residents from Big Branch that want this property zoned HC2, and that is evidenced by the fact that they're here tonight. So it is unusual that I come to the podium requesting a rezoning and have people that have taken time to come out in support of the project, but you have it here tonight, and these are people from the Big Branch community, and I think that's important. With regards to Ms. Murphy's comment about property values, a similar comment was made at the Zoning Commission, and we take that comment very seriously. So we took the time to go check with an appraiser, because at the commission level, it was suggested that an appraiser had told her that if we were approved, that her property would lose value. So we contacted an appraiser, asked the same question, and were told that emphatically there is no data whatsoever to support such an assertion. And so I would submit to you that a properly run facility, in accordance with your ordinance, that has regulations with regards to commercial meeting residential, will not detract from her values. I would also submit to you that this property fronts Highway 190. Highway 190 is a major corridor, not only through the state of Louisiana, but all the way across this country. And it is not unreasonable to suggest or to agree with the fact that an appropriate zoning on Highway 190 in this location would be HC2. Ms. Meads noted that some of the zoned property is not in use in this area. Well, I would submit to you that at some point, this council or your predecessor determined that a zoning of commercial nature was appropriate. Now, whether or not somebody used it is irrelevant. Zoning, commercial zoning in this area is appropriate, and we would respectfully request your support to our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. That exhausts then the appellate's rebuttal time. We'll open it now for the rebuttal to the proponents. How much time? 2 minutes? Please state your name and give your
My
address.
name is Carol Seagrave. I live next to the Murphys on Highway 190. My husband and I bought the property 42 years ago. We've lived there all that time. We've made extensive repairs to our house and the property, and with the trees. We put beautiful landscaping on it, and every time we did that, we asked our children who are grown and our grandchildren who are grown, are you going to want this property? You want it as a family home? And they said, yes. We'll never get rid of it. And it's a family home, it's a haven, it's something that they look forward to coming to see. And it disturbs me that this could be creeping up, you know, this commercialism could be creeping up, and eventually this property would be gone, because St. Tammany was known for this quality of air, for the beautiful trees, for the wildlife, and all that's going. So I just want to say that I hope it lasts, my home lasts forever.
Thank you, Mrs. Seagrave. There's rebuttal time available for the
1 minute.
1 minute left. So is anyone else, Ms. Murphy, anybody want to take that minute?
I'm going to take a minute.
Please.
As far as the appraisal, I use Fred Bruce. He works for Scoggins. He's retired now. He's done appraisal for for vacant property all over the parish. Anybody know Fred Bruce? Anyway, he said there was no property that has been valued, just as Mr. Marone said. But in his expert opinion, as an appraiser of vacant property in this parish, he told me specifically, I can get him to write it down, that it would lose my property lost 20%. I mean, if an auto used car lot came next to your property, do you think it wouldn't lose value? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Is there anyone that, of the members of the public that wish to say anything further? Very well, then I'll move to Mr. Grovey. Give you the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Several months ago, when this proposal for zoning change first came to me, I met personally with the owners of the property. I walked the property. Without question, that car lot is, without doubt, the neatest, best-kept used car lot we have in this parish, as far as I know. I honestly can say that because I have 7 used car lots in my district along 190. If they all look like that, and they have another one that looks just that good, I would really not be against used car lots. They are not regularly maintained. This one and the other one like it is very well maintained. Until tonight's meeting, other than Miss Janine, who called me a couple of months ago to voice her opinion, I have honestly not received one email, one phone call, one meeting, and anybody to tell me they were in opposition to this until they walked in here tonight. I have, however, in the last 2 weeks, received emails and phone calls in support of overriding the zoning denial, which actually surprised me. I was given the photos. This is what was there before. It was not maintained, and it was an eyesore. This is what's there now, and if you go visit this car lot, you're going to find that it is extremely well-kept and maintained. But that wasn't the only thing that made me decide to support this zoning request. I have to look at things on many levels. One of them is, of course, if they're going to be a good neighbor, but the other thing is if they're going to impact financially the district. A lot of people probably don't know this, but I believe last year, if I have the numbers correct, there was $2 million in sales there, and I want to say $160,000 generated property sales tax that came directly into the infrastructure of this parish. I wish all the businesses could support at that level. It is my intent to request the council to deny the ruling of the zoning board and I grant the HC2 zoning override, I'm sorry.
There's a motion on the floor then to override the zoning commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Artigue, any further discussion? Mr. Stefanczyk, your light?
Oh, no.
Okay. Not appearing then, let's please vote.
Motion passes, 12 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent.
All right, Mr. Grovey, will you move to introduce an ordinance?
Yes.
Is there a second? Mr. Canulet? Very well, that's all we need to do. All right, we'll move then to ordinances for adoption. A request has been made by Ms. Stevens that we move up ordinance number 13, ordinance number 5121. Mr. Gould, that would be your item. You want to make that motion? All right, there's a motion and a second by Mr. Thompson that we move up item number 13 on the agenda. Please vote. Oh, gee. Put Mr. Gang. Oh, it was Mr. Thompson.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
It was Mr. Thompson. I remember doing it. All right, ordinance, item number 13 under ordinances for approval. Ordinance calendar number 5121, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels from the Archdiocese of New Orleans for Holy Trinity Drive, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Gould, did you want to start?
Move adoption.
There's a motion for adoption on the floor, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion among my colleagues? Administration? Staff? Members of the public? Ms. Stevens?
Terry Stevens, 725 Dove Park Road. I'm one of Marty Gould's neighbors, and I'm shocked, but I'm just dismayed. I'm just dismayed at his lack of representation. This parcel is 5.6 acres. It was submitted in the CEA for payment at $540,000 for 5 acres. I've already established earlier the going rate on Dove Park, and in the nearby vicinity is $60,000 an acre. So this piece of property should be appraised at $300,000, but instead the parish is prepared to pay $500,000 in cash and $40,000 again in impact fees. Wow, I'm so shocked, I'm so saddened that nobody understands the magnitude of that, and what makes me even sadder is one of the conditions of this rezoning was that, and Marty Gould is on the record, that the church would pay for the road, and now the taxpayers are going to pay $540,000 for the road. I'm sick about it, and I'm so sad that you're not helping us in any way, shape, or form. To add to that, the appraisal was even suggested to you as hypothetical, and it was based on the fact that the property would be rezoned commercial. It's called fiscal rezoning, and what happened was it never got rezoned. The actual parcel, the 5.6 acre parcel, is still zoned residential, but you're going to pay commercial costs, commercial prices for that property, which is just ripping off the taxpayers something fierce, and I'm really, really upset about it. I think that you should table this motion, you should think about this, you should have an independent appraiser come back, appraise this residential property per the appraiser's office, take the hypothetical out of it, keep it appraised as residential, don't go by the ANO's appraised value. That's not fair to the taxpayers. The parish should have had an independent appraisal for all of these properties. I urge you to do that rather than adopt this motion. It's not fair to the taxpayers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Falconer. Again, Jeff Shane, P.O. Box 1810, Covington, of the Jones Fussell firm representing the Archdiocese of New Orleans. I guess firstly, with regard to the ordinance which will allow the parish to acquire the right-of-way from the Archdiocese, this is again a contractual obligation of the parish pursuant to the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement that was signed on February 6th of 2013, pursuant to the resolution that this body passed on January 3 of 2013. With regard to the value, the appraisal is actually $540,000. The bargained or negotiated sale price is $500,000. It's actually 7.4% less than the appraised value. The appraisal is not an appraisal that the Archdiocese went out and just picked its favorite appraiser to do the appraisal. The parish advised the Archdiocese that it must use one of the appraisers that are on your list as being approved appraisers for the parish. This appraiser was selected. Yes, the Archdiocese paid for the appraisal, as is always the case when the private sector is seeking to have a property appraised. But the point is that the appraiser's on your approved list. So let's think about it. Part of this business proposition was that this right-of-way would be purchased by the parish. As it turns out, the parish only had $500,000, even though the appraisal was $540,000. Yes, the Archdiocese has requested an impact fee credit for that $40,000. Again, similar to discussions of earlier this evening, no impact fee credit has been granted as of yet. This ordinance only allows for the purchase of the right-of-way. Now, with regard to the appraisal, if you read the appraisal, and I'm reading page 2 of the September 28th appraisal, the appraiser clearly says the property is zoned A1. The property is still zoned A1. But the appraiser also says that he made an assumption that the adjoining properties would be zoned CB1, that's community-based, where the church is going to be built on Lot 1, MD1, that is for the senior retirement rental community, which will be on Lots 2 and 3, and Public Facilities 1 on Lot 4. Why was it an assumption? It's because the appraisal was effective September 24th. The ordinances had already been introduced by the council. There had been no appeals taken to the zoning commission action to rezone these properties. And you know when the zonings were effectuated? 10 days later. Well, how can he say that those 4 lots are in fact zoned, the classifications I just gave you, until you adopt the ordinance? But short of a miracle, meaning that I don't know that I've ever seen a zoning ordinance that was not adopted when there was a recommendation by the zoning commission and there was no appeal, the appraiser did his job to make sure that he reflected what in fact were factual and accurate conditions. It should not surprise us that the value of a right-of-way in an institutional district or corridor, and I'm using that term in general because I consider a church, a retirement community, a funeral home, a cemetery, and a mausoleum to be an institutional corridor. The value of that right-of-way will be greater than the value of a right-of-way that goes through a residential district. The appraiser made that point abundantly clear. If you look at the comparables in his appraisal, it makes it very clear. And at the end of the day, the value assigned in this appraisal is $2.20 a square foot. I happen to pull, may I have the benefit of 2 more minutes, and certainly have Ms. Stevens provided 2 more minutes?
Sure.
Can
Please.
I talk afterwards?
Oh, yeah, it's
Well,
not necessary
whomever.
for Ms. Stevens, it's just the other side.
Make
No
it
problem.
Whomever.
2 minutes.
I appreciate the courtesy. I took a look at some residential values in the area, and interestingly, I found a sale of a lot in a subdivision just across the street from Dove Park called Brookstone. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And surprisingly, that in May of 2012, a near 1 acre parcel sold for nearly $3 a square foot. I'm not suggesting that tonight's ordinance requires an appraisal debate. I'm only suggesting to you that the appraisal that was submitted was prepared by an appraiser approved by the parish, that the value selected anticipated the zoning ordinance that was adopted by you 10 days after the appraisal was delivered, and that the value assigned by the appraisal of $2.20 a square foot was really very modest, in my opinion, as it relates to other residential values that are clearly in the vicinity. So at the end of the day, the Archdiocese would respectfully request the following. The Cooperative Endeavor Agreement required us to build the road. To date, we've spent $1.4 million in constructing the road. The Cooperative Endeavor Agreement envisioned that after we built the road, the parish would buy the right-of-way, the land, at the appraised value, or in this case, as I've said earlier, $500,000. Please, let's let this business transaction go forward, not just for the benefit of the Archdiocese, but for the benefit of the people, particularly in that region in St. Tammany Parish, so that they can have an improved transportation opportunity to get from Judge Tanner Drive to Dove Park Road for safety, for convenience, and for the well-being of all that live there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Mr. Sponsek, how much time do we have allotted to the opposition?
Same speaker, 2 minutes.
No, we could have another speaker.
If you get another speaker, you got 7 more minutes, because you're allocating time to each one of them.
Doesn't the Home Rule Charter allow everybody who wants to speak
This
the
is
chance?
not
gonna-
this is our rules. This is not so this allows people, if we give one of them 7 minutes, we gotta give the other one 7 minutes. No, not side. This is not a side issue. Unfortunately, this is not an appeal.
This is a public hearing. So, Ms. Stevens, please continue.
According to the St. Tammany Parish Assessor's Office, and sadly, he left, or I would have drug him up here as well. The fair market value of your property is discovering the price most people would pay in its present condition, not when it's improved, not when it's rezoned, in its present condition. And presently, it is A1 zoned residential. And even though Brookstone, where Marty lives, is a really expensive gated community, where I live right down the street on Dove Park, my acreage was $33,000 per acre. So that's a far cry from $90,000 per acre, which the A&O is asking you to pay. And if I can just quickly say regarding the CEA, they violated it 7 times already. So for you to be held to it doesn't seem to be fair either, because it certainly has not been fair to us. Kelly could speak, that'd be great. Thanks.
Does anyone have an objection to having additional comments on this item? Okay, ma'am? Oh, it's fine. No, you're welcome to speak. I just want to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing up here.
Hi,
Thank
I'm
you.
Kelly Kreminski at Brookstone Drive. I just have a quick question with regards to the ordinance where it says you're going to vote to bring this in to acquire the servitude and all that, but you're also going to bring it into the parish maintenance system, correct? Is that what we're going to do? When that happens, does that road automatically open up for public use?
I think the CEA covers when that road will be brought into public use, but also it's after it goes through our inspections and make sure that it meets all of our parish standards.
And
right. And I think that the opening of this new corridor is to not allow any construction off of Dove Park Road. Construction equipment or traffic.
Okay. Since the CEA has already been violated 7 times, plus once today, where they took up the barricade to bring in a construction truck and bring it out right in front of Brookstone. Had I had my phone with me, I would have snapped a shot. I was getting my mail, and I couldn't get back in the house fast enough to get it done. Mr. Shane keeps talking about the CEA and how they want to be a good neighbor and how we want to get this all taken care of, and which is wonderful, but What guarantee do we on Dove Park Road have that they are not going to violate this once again? Plus, these construction crews don't care. There's no sanctions against them. They keep coming down Dove Park. They've been violating that quite some time. I don't know, what guarantee do we have?
I can tell you that our code enforcement division is aware of heightened sensitivity for the requirements of the cooperative endeavor agreement. I myself am, and anytime we get a call, we act immediately to address the issue, as well as place a call to Mr. Shane to alert him of the activity, and we monitor it very closely. We're using all of our best efforts that we can to make sure that everything according to the cooperative endeavor agreement is adhered to.
Okay, so since they violated it 8 times already,
So, Ms. Kaminsky, I think what we need to do is put you in touch with the Code Enforcement Division, give them your
so it's now it's on me to police this project.
Well, Ms. Rabelais, I think.
No,
that's
ma'am,
the-
but
that's our
however, but
procedure.
I'm not there, and so we do respond to
Citizen complaints.
constituent complaints with regards to any activity that is going on so that we can respond.
Well, I did have an email from Ms. Brister saying that that would be closed.
It is. It was today. I was by there this afternoon,
for
and it has a
construction.
barricade up there
Right.
right now, or it
Right.
did 3 hours ago. So
Right.
other than laying down in the street to keep cars from coming by, I don't know what else to do other than come out every time someone calls us and put the barricades up. I don't know what else to do.
Well, no, your email to me was that there would be permanent barricades there for the...
There would be barricades there, and there will be. And there are barricades there right now.
Okay, so
Or there
how-
was several hours ago.
Then how, if the road's going to be open, how is the traffic?
Ms. Kaminsky, excuse me, but we need to keep on the topic, which the topic for
Well,
this moment
the only thing
is
that
the
can,
ordinance.
that the CEA says, construction, equipment, and automobiles, cars, trucks, whatever, cannot enter the property off Dove Park Road. When I drove down Dove Park Road today, it was barricaded
Right.
across, and it will continue to be so, as it is in our CEA. If someone breaks the law, removes barricades, unless we're out there
Okay,
every
so-
day,
okay,
we
so-
won't know
So
that.
what is currently there right now
Ms. Kaminsky.
is going to be there for 2 years
I
until
appreciate your
construction's done?
comments, but we've got to get back on the topic at hand. And so, Mr. Gould, I think we need to move forward.
All right, there are a couple,
I'm sorry.
there are a couple of Westwood people, specifically from 400 block, we would like to weigh into this.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, thank you for your time. My name is Mike Pennington, I live at 412 Westwood Drive. I've been a resident of St. Tammany Parish all my life. I've lived at Westwood since 1992. Just before Judgetown Drive, which was then Fairway Drive, was opened, we were assured that there'd be a relieving of traffic through our end of the subdivision, which has not been done in over 15 years. Now, since the Archdiocese has decided to build this church and put these roads and pay the funds to build the road, we have our chance to have a free reign of road on our end of the subdivision. We have done studies, the parish has done studies that proclaim there's been over 2,000 vehicles a day that passes through my side of the subdivision. As of Saturday morning, I was standing outside in my front yard, in no less than two minutes, I counted 25 vehicles, 3/4 of which were doing in excess of 30 miles an hour in the end of the road that has no through traffic and has a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, we beg the parish council to consider to open this Most Holy Trinity Drive to help ease some of the traffic problems. I don't know why, and I was totally perturbed from the fact that a statement by one of these ladies made that this road does not have to be open, we can use Westwood Drive. When the fact that means to me she has no concern for the families, the safety of the families who live on Westwood. Now, us, the people of Westwood Drive are tired, sick and tired of the traffic problems that we've had over the last 20 years. And we would like to please be recommended that this street be open to relieve some of that traffic problem. I don't know why they want to go down Westwood Drive when they got to do 15 miles an hour and jump over 5 speed bumps. It don't make any sense to me when you got perfectly clear right-of-way coming straight off of Dove Park Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Hold on. I want to be respectful, and I want everybody to have a chance to speak that wants to speak. But we're talking about here an ordinance to acquire parcels from the Archdiocese, okay? So please do your best to stay on topic. Would you approach the microphone, state your name, and give your address for the record?
I'm Savannah Andrews, 428 Westwood Drive. In August, right before freshman orientation, I had friends over, and me and my brother witnessed my cat get hit by 3 cars, and if you open up the barricade, these 2 women live in Brookstone, which is a gated community, and it will do nothing, they won't affect them, but for the 400 block, we will have more traffic than we already have, and I just think that that's not right. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. We appreciate you taking the time to come out, but we're talking about an ordinance that's going to authorize the acquisition of certain parcels. We're not talking about changing the joint agreement, the cooperative endeavor agreement. Thank you. But thank you for your comments, and please come back. Who's next? Who else wishes to speak? All right, Reed. All right, Mr. Gould.
In May 2001, the parish extended Judge Tanner Boulevard to Westwood Drive. This new connection had an effort of making a more direct route to and from 190 and Dove Park Road. What served as a great benefit to Dove Park area residents became equally a burden to the residents of the 400 block of Westwood. Traffic counts went immediately to 1,400 cars a day on this neighborhood street. Today, 2,900 cars a day utilize it to access Dove Park corridor, which contains over 400 homes. Over time, that number will increase. This is the traffic study, the counts that I'm referring to. Local officials promised relief once Judge Tanner Boulevard was extended to Highway 59. It became apparent that the extension of Judge Tanner was dead due to the environmental concerns of the United States Army Corps of Engineers Regulatory Division in late 2009. Westwood would not see relief from the problem parish government caused. And do not be mistaken, we caused this problem. We threw this traffic on these people. After consulting with the parish president and his CEO, it was decided that a bypass road was needed to cure the problem that our planners caused when Judge Tanner was extended. I announced during the first week of December 2010 that a compromise had been made with the Archdiocese to put the road through their property, connecting Judge Tanner to Dove Park Road. A news story appeared in the Times-Picayune on December 11, 2010, covering the announcement. The parish would build the road from Judge Tanner to Dove Park. The church would donate the land. Funding for construction of Westwood Bypass was included in the district budget in 2011. Additional funds were included in the 2012 budget. This is the newspaper article right here. Put that in the record, please. Also, these are the from the budget when these things were authorized. It became apparent during the planning process leading up to the May 2011 zoning hearing that it would be better not to have 2 separate contractors working in the same location building roads. The Archdiocese also wanted to build a concrete roadway, and the parish was committed to an asphalt road. We agreed to reverse roles where the parish would purchase the right-of-way. It was stated at last month's meeting that this public road was not necessary per traffic study and per requested information from the traffic engineer because the public street next to it, Westwood, accommodated the local traffic. I agree that the uses designated along Holy Trinity do not warrant a connection to Dove Park Road in order to service that development. That is precisely why the parish participation in the construction of Holy Trinity Drive was necessary to ensure the connection to Dove Park Road, thus relieving the stress on the 400 block of Westwood Drive. After all, government caused the problem on Westwood Drive. It is our obligation to fix it. The parish is obligated to purchase the right-of-way at fair market value in compliance with the CEA approved last January. It is my understanding that the appraisal for the right-of-way is $2 a square foot. Oddly enough, that price matches the appraised value of Brookstone Streets, $2 a square foot. Mr. Chairman, it is time to open up this roadway, get this monkey off of these people's back. I know some of the people on Dove Park Road aren't happy about any of this, but there are plenty of them that have called me and told me just go with it. We understand what you're doing. We also understand it's a hard decision and you're not going to satisfy everyone. I'll move on the question.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor already, so all we need then to do is vote. Anyone else have any further? Oh, I guess the question's been called. We got to vote. Let's vote.
Motion is unanimous, 3 absent.
I want to thank the council for your support. This has been a tough situation, and I really appreciate the fact that you have faith in me.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. All right, thank you, members of the public. We'll move then to the first item under ordinances for adoption, ordinance calendar number 5097, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances relative to roadway testing and inspection standards for residential and commercial subdivisions.
Yes.
That would be Mr. Hand. Thank you.
I'd like to draw your attention to page 14 of the proposed ordinance, and there are some technical issues that need to be addressed. The way it's presented to you under item number 6, it refers to the parish treasurer. We no longer have a parish treasurer, and it is recommended that an amendment to this be placed to where it reads, the Department of Finance Director. So where the word parish treasurer appears in paragraph 6, that it be substituted with the Department of Finance Director. The second item that I need to draw your attention to is in number 7. There is a reference to 1 year. When it went before the Planning Commission suggested that that be changed to 2 years. But as it appears before you, it in fact remains that it was originally proposed at 1 year. And the third item is number 8. And where it calls for it currently calls for the Planning Commission in order to call an outstanding security, it should read that and this was recommended by planning, it should read in the original proposal also, that the parish engineer, with regard to performance obligations established by the commission, is the one to call it, and the council would have the ability to call with regard to warranty obligations. So those are the 2 amendments that I have that I would recommend to you, and then it's your discretion regarding whether or not you want to leave in paragraph 7 it at 1 year or adopt 2 years, but it currently stands at 1 year.
All All right, I see no lights. I need a motion on the proposed amendment from Mr. Hand.
Can we accept those as friendly amendments?
Yes.
I move we do friendly.
All right. Do we need to vote on the friendly amendment? No, not a friendly amendment. Very well.
No objection.
All right, then there's no objection, then is there, you want to move for adoption?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, item number 2 under ordinances for adoption. Ordinance calendar number 5109, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 7, Drainage and Flood Control, to amend and reestablish the boundaries of Drainage District Number 2, Ward 9, District 13.
Make a motion, we table this for right now, let the administration get some more information.
So technically, you would like to postpone, not table till later in the meeting.
That's correct.
Postpone. Thank you, Mr. Artigue. Motion by Mr. Artigue to postpone, second by Mr. Stefancic. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Under ordinances for adoption, item number 3, ordinance calendar number 5110, ordinance amending the official zoning map to classify, official parish zoning map to reclassify a parcel of land from A2 to and NC4 to A2, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 4, ordinance calendar number 5111, ordinance amending the official zoning map to reclassify 2.74 acres A1 to A2, Ward 2, District 3. Mr. Thompson. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Mr. Artigue? Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 5, ordinance calendar number 5112, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 15,000 square feet from A3 to A3 in mobile home overlay, Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Belisario makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 6, ordinance calendar number 5113, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 39,989.4 square feet from A3 to A3 in mobile home overlay, Ward 6, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 7, ordinance calendar number 5114, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels, rights-of-way, and servitudes for the Pinewood Circle Site Triangle Project, Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Belisario. Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
Mr. Smith. Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 8, ordinance calendar number 5115, ordinance accepting finalized subdivisions into the road and drainage inventory, specifically Colonial Pinnacle Nord-Delac Minor Subdivision, West Shore Drive, a.k.a. Access Road Number 2, Ward 1, District 1. Mr. Dean. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 9, ordinance calendar number 5116, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3 acres from NC2 to MD2 Medical Clinic District, Ward 1, District 1. Mr. Dean. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 10, ordinance calendar number 5118, ordinance to impose a 6-month moratorium on the opening of new streets in Angelic Estates, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 11, ordinance calendar number 5119, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium for property abutting the Louisiana Highway 21 planned corridor from Line Road north to Azalea Drive, Ward 1, District 1. Mr. Dean. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 12, ordinance calendar number 5120, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 4 acres from A2 to A2 in mobile home overlay, Ward 2, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
We took item 13 earlier, so we'll move to item 14, ordinance calendar number 5122, ordinance to amend the 2013 operating budget, amendment number 10.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bellisario, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Under nominations, number 1, resolution to appoint a representative of the Hotel Motel Association to the St. Tammany Parish Tourist and Convention Commission. Are there nominations to be offered? Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. I would like to place in the nomination a young man that has been serving on the St. Tammany Parish Tourist Commission with us now very successfully for the last year and a half, and you've been distributed a copy of a letter coming from the Tourist Commission President and CEO recommending him as well in the name of Pablo Menendez. We'd like to offer to nomination.
All right, that was a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Groby. Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close nominations?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Artigue to close nominations. Clear? All right, please.
Parish-wide appointment. You're going to have to let it lay over.
Okay, I need a motion to suspend the rules and elect Mr. Menendez tonight. Motion by Mr. Artigue to suspend the rules, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
That suspends the rules. Then I need a motion. Well, we've got a motion. Let's do it right, though. Mr. Smith, you're going to make the motion for Mr. Menendez. Mr. Artigue is going to second it. Let's vote on Mr. Menendez.
Mr. Groby, Mr. Canulet. Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Under appointments, number 1, resolution to appoint Tiffany Hudson to the Board of Commissioners for St. Tammany Parish Recreation District Number 2, District 6. Mr. Tanner.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Item number 2 under appointments, resolution to appoint 1 member to the Board of Commissioners for St. Tammany Rec District Number 6, Districts 2 and 6. Mr. Tanner or Mr. Sharp? Mr. Tanner?
I don't have to think about it. Can I put that on? What is the person?
You want to move to postpone?
Yes.
Motion to postpone by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Sharp. Please vote. Got to go back to the off the floor.
Yes. Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Mr. Canulet, you wanted to talk about reopening the off-the-floor agenda?
No, I wanted to finish it early, in the early part of the meeting, so we wouldn't have to go back and do it.
Sorry.
That's what I wanted.
Do you have an item to bring off the floor? Okay, Mr. Smith? Turn your mic on. Sorry.
I wanted to offer a resolution requesting the Louisiana Department of Economic Development designate Block Group 2 of Census Tract 411.02 in St. Tammany Parish as an additional qualified enterprise zone pursuant to authority and criteria established by the Louisiana Revised Statute.
Okay, as I understand it, we first have to vote to open the floor for this item, correct?
That's right. But no,
We didn't do that? Oh, I open the floor then.
Is this an emergency?
No, this
Right.
this
Have
is
to do
part
each-
of what he postponed earlier in the meeting.
Right.
It was completely not a part of what we had before.
Well, I guess you can't classify it as an emergency, Gene, because it has to be done in 2014, and this part of the year is when that has to be done.
This is 2014.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to open the floor for this item specifically. So there's a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, with a unanimous vote now, we can take the motion for the specific item. So would
As
you read it
stated.
again, Mr. Smith?
As stated.
Please. Very well. Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Mr. Artigue, do you have anything to bring up off the floor? Mr. Stefanczyk? Ms. O'Brien? Mr. Belisario? Mr. Canulet? Mr. Groby? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Gould? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Dean? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Wait, so moved? Okay, good.